Hello there, welcome to my channel and welcome to my 2023 word count and time tracking statistics recap video. Right before I sat down to film this, I very quickly pulled up the last time tracking statistics video that I filmed just for a little bit of inspiration, and I realized that I'm wearing not this exact same shirt, but a short sleeved one in the same color and the exact same earrings to go with it. So at least we're consistent, right? I think that video was filmed a year and a half ago and I haven't looked at it since, so this is a really weird coincidence. Either that or I just need more clothes, I don't know. Anyway, hello, if you're new here, I have a slight problem when it comes to time tracking, and by problem I mean inability to do anything unless I am tracking it at the same time. Which means that I accumulate a lot of statistics, which is fortunate for you because then you get to watch them now. The main three categories that I normally track are writing, art, and YouTube, and I will be going through each of those in turn. And while I tend to keep an eye on these on a week by week and month by month basis, I have not looked at my overall statistics for the year yet, which means that you get to see them for the first time with me. And I like doing this sort of review of where I'm spending my time once a year because I didn't set any goals last year, but I do have very clear intentions of what I would like to be doing with my time, and I just like checking that I am actually prioritizing what I want to prioritize and that I'm spending an even amount of time between these three categories, something that I already know I've probably failed at this year again. But that's alright, this is just a bit of a check-in to see how I'm doing, and the next year we can do better. So I'm just going to start a screen capture, probably. Welcome to my toggle page. This is where I keep track of everything I do, like a normal person without psychological problems. And I am just going to change this to show the statistics for this year. We are still halfway through December at the minute, but I am trying to take December off doing productive things because I am trying to get over burnout, so I don't think my statistics are gonna change very much in the last weeks of the year. And there we have it. This is what I've been doing this year. Immediate first impression is that this is way better than I thought I'd done. As you can see, I've had a very bad November and December so far. December being on purpose, November was absolutely not on purpose. So it just feels like I've had a bad year, but actually I don't think that's true. It's just been a very bad end of the year. My total hours seem to be 317, which is pretty good. I can't remember how much I did last year, but we can check. Okay, I did a lot better last year. We did nearly 600 hours of stuff last year. Wow. I am a little bit appalled by how that number can be so different. How have I only done half the amount of stuff this year than last year? Okay, let me stop looking at that, get so depressing, and go back to this year. My best month was definitely in January, which makes sense because I had some time off work at the start of the month, as well as some time off in August, which you really cannot see at all based on this. Some time off at the start of September, and also in April. April was also the final month in my last job before I switched to a new job towards the end of April, and you can really see that in May when I was still getting used to the job and had to sort of slowly work my way back up to being able to do stuff in my free time. It's definitely not great compared to last year, but my initial thought was to be impressed before I looked at last year's statistics, so maybe I just shouldn't have opened last year's statistics. But taking a look into what I'm actually spending my time on, you can see a whole bunch of categories, and the main ones seem to be distributed between YouTube with 113 hours, and writing, specifically writing my second book in the Project Side series, which I spent 100 hours on. And this is actually pretty good because that book isn't the only writing project I have on the list this time around. So I reckon if you add up the time I spent on Project Voice plus the time I spent on brainstorming the series, which I think... Oh, apparently I didn't do any brainstorming of the series in January because that happened in December last year. But still, if you add up Project Voice and Project Sight, that's 120 hours, which is slightly more than how much time I spent on YouTube. Of course, that doesn't include streaming, which was 32 hours, so I still seem to be spending more time making YouTube videos than doing anything else, which is something that I said last time I wanted to avoid. I think we're evening it out though. I don't think it's terrible. So I spent the whole 6% of the year working on Project Voice, which is pretty cool considering this only happened over the course of a month. And then 32 hours on streaming, we've covered that, and 16% on other stuff. And this is very much all over the place for this category. And I left my calculator on the desk. Give me a second. So if I add up how many different art categories I have on the list, because they're all over the place, we've got 1.5 hours of art commissions, we've got 2 hours of book cover design, just under 10 hours of digital painting practice. That is insanely low. And I realized some of the other, like both the art commission I did and the book cover design I did were all digital art as well. But I would really like that digital painting practice to be higher next year. That is really not anywhere close to where I want it to be. We've also spent 3.5 hours. Seriously? I feel like I must have forgotten to track some of those, because, I mean, surely. I filled in quite a lot of sketchbook pages. That's very low. Yeah. Anyway, 3.5 hours of actually sketching in my sketchbook. 11 hours making a map, which was also technically digital art. And then we've also spent 1.5 hours making Project Voice related art, which is its own category for some reason I don't entirely understand. So that brings us to a total of 29.5 hours on some type of art making. If you compare that to my 113 hours of YouTube, that is, When I was starting to set some of the intentions for next year, one of the big things I added was that I definitely want to double down, maybe even triple down on how much art I'm making, specifically how many art courses I'm taking and how much I'm spending studying art and studying how to make art. I would really like to make my own book covers one day, and I am nowhere close to the level of skill that requires. And if I continue only doing 30 hours a year, we're not gonna get there fast enough for me to be at that skill level by the time my books are ready to publish. So we really gotta focus down on this one next year, I think. The other thing I'd be curious to go through is how much time I spend on a month-to-month basis on writing, because I also have month-to-month word count statistics that I would like to share with you. Let's see, so if I add my different writing projects, I don't think I've done any short stories this year, but I'll add that anyway. And I don't think I've done any writing practice. Don't think I've worked on that, but we'll add it. I guess technically beta reading is writing related, right? Let's add that as well. Okay. So now these are my purely writing related statistics, and you can see that the times that I spent the most writing was actually September, which is when I finished the second book. Was it? I think so. I think I finished the second book in the Project Side series just on the last weekend of September. I really had to push myself to finish it in time. And that book was in the works from very late in December last year up until the very end of September. You can see I spent a total of 100 hours. Of course, we already saw that. But yeah, 100 hours on that book this year, which if you maybe add an extra like 5 from the year before, that's how long that book took to write, start to finish, which is very interesting. That's a lot of hours for just a first draft that was supposed to be a very quick draft as well. And yeah, this entire time was just draft 1, like I said. For beta reading and critiquing, I worked on 2 different books this year, both from my fellow Chaos Queens. I am missing Violet in here, so Violet, you better give me a book to critique next year, because I gotta add you. And then for Project Voice, I spent some time, Oh, I don't like that. Why did that happen? Can I edit this? Yeah, apparently so. Research and brainstorming. Okay, that looks much nicer. So now I've got 20 hours total, of which 10 hours was drafting. We did not finish the draft. I quit NaNoWriMo halfway through because I got ill. But I spent 10 hours writing what was effectively most of Act 1, almost 2 hours on a project playlist, and almost 9 hours on research and brainstorming. I guess what I'm most amazed by is the fact that I wrote an entire act in 10 hours. That's kinda cool, and good to know that I can physically do that if I need to, compared to, you know, Project Side, which took me 33 hours per act, apparently. Which makes sense because it's a much longer book. So next up, I wanted to show you my actual writing statistics, which I have a separate spreadsheet on. And I haven't done any word count tracking in a very long time, since, you know, maybe like 10 years ago or something. But this year in January, I actually participated in an event called NaNoWriMo, which is a non-sanctioned version of NaNoWriMo hosted by one of my good friends, Katie Ann, who also makes videos here on authortube. And I used her spreadsheet during the event to keep track of my word count, and at the end of the event I decided that I was actually going to continue doing that throughout the year. So I copied what she had for the month of January, just my section of it. So this was the original spreadsheet that I used for January, and then just sort of copied, and I clearly put a lot more effort into this in January than I did in any of the other months. It's kind of cool. I should do this more often. Then for February, we start getting lazy and there's nothing else on the sheet. But I did this throughout the year and then put my total word count and my total time from my other statistics that I just showed you on here, as well as what I was working on. So apparently I started chapter 7 back in January on the project side book. I didn't realize I'd got that far last year in December, but apparently I did. And then I continued working on that until the end of September, when I finished with 58 chapters. This is how many words I got throughout that time. So as you can see, most of that was actually in September when I was rushing to finish it before NaNoWriMo, as well as during January when I participated in that event. And as I said previously, April was when I got a new job, so you can see in May I barely did anything. I think March was when I was job hunting, so I also barely did anything. And then at the end of March, I sort of got accepted for a job, but had to wait 4 months at my existing job. So I wasn't job hunting, but I was still in a job that was relatively easy and safe to me. So that's why April looks so good in comparison. I also had a small holiday in between. And yeah, surprisingly, November, I actually did really well, relatively speaking, which is very surprising to me considering how much of a complete car crash that month was. October, of course, doesn't show up as having anything in there, but we were just brainstorming and outlining that month. And in December, we are purposely taking a break because November completely broke me and we need a break. And I am hoping to go back to doing some project side work in December. That won't be for another week and a bit until I'm back in Spain for the holidays, probably after Christmas, so that I can spend some time with my family first. But I'm expecting to spend that time just rereading either book 1 or book 2 of the series. I haven't decided what I want to start with yet, so I'm not expecting to actually be writing any words. It's just gonna be easing myself back into it slowly. And if I scroll all the way down to the bottom, I apparently wrote over 100,000 words this year, which I absolutely was not expecting. That is a lot more than I thought I'd written. I guess it makes sense because the project side books I generally aim for about 100,000 words, and then I also worked on Act 1 of Project Voice. So it's not that surprising if I think about it, it just hadn't occurred to me that I'd actually written a substantial amount of words this year and not just, crashed and burned like I did in the last month. So going back to my overall statistics, if I just select everything again. I'm not actually too upset about how I did. I know that it's not nearly as good as I did last year. Do you want to figure out some differences? I honestly cannot figure out how I did all of this last year. And I think last time I looked at this last year, I was annoyed at how little I was doing as well. Like, what's wrong with me? Anyway, I don't think we've done too badly. This year has been a pretty difficult year in terms of things happening outside of my creative life. Not only did I change jobs, I also started taking driving lessons, which I've been doing on and off all year, and I still suck at it. It's fine. As well as spending the last couple of months trying to figure out how to buy a house. And I haven't been time tracking those things. I only really time track my creative work because I like looking at it. I don't want to time track, interview prep and stuff like that. Probably should, because that would make my statistics look a lot better. But yeah, I definitely feel like this was a bit of a transition year in my life. There's been so many other things going on, and I think even though I've done a lot less work this year than last year in terms of my creative projects and working on my dreams, I'm actually much happier. I'm actually at a job that I really enjoy at the minute. We are looking into moving somewhere much nicer than this place. Hopefully in the future. It's not going very well, but And I just think my quality of life has increased, especially with the new job, but also just in general. I feel a lot more confident than I did this time last year, and I am very, very ready to take on next year with a lot more energy and just really take on a whole bunch of other creative projects. I have so many ideas for stuff I want to work on, and I'm excited to share that part of my life with you next year. If you aren't already, I would absolutely appreciate it if you wanted to subscribe and stick around. Apparently I spent a disproportionate amount of time making videos compared to making anything else, so I will appreciate it if you wanted to watch them. I hope that you enjoyed looking through my statistics, and if you wanted to join me in also time tracking everything you do next year, I would be very curious in seeing how it turns out. Thank you so much for watching, and I will probably see you next year. Bye bye.